So there's just another video that popped into my algorithm feed about loneliness and just how unhealthy it is. But let me provide some commentary from a pro-male perspective.
Everyone needs time to themselves, and peaceful solitude has stress-relieving benefits. But being alone takes on an entirely different dimension when it creeps up or is forced upon you.
Actually, for men, the latter is more true because if you're not high status enough, or if you aren't quote unquote keeping up in life, society will remind you that it's hostile to you. I mean, it's in our culture, it's in the media, it's in our slur words. It's everywhere. So for the most part, it's forced upon men. I mean,
When that's the case, the effects can be surprisingly extensive.
I wonder what effects could it be?
And though different people experience distinct effects at different times, symptoms tend to become more severe and persistent the longer one's isolated. When someone is involuntarily confined to one space indefinitely for days, weeks, months, or even years, alone and without productive tasks, their body will likely undergo numerous changes.
Well, I mean, sometimes like as for so-called being productive, sometimes it could really be hard for people to be productive. I mean, for productive can mean a lot of things. I mean, in this field, this could probably mean like just being productive with your goals, but sometimes men would not be productive just because they're not getting enough positive reinforcement or just not being encouraged enough or they're just not like getting enough support. Just because well, that's just how sometimes it could be like that.
Let's take a look at what may happen and why. Early on, stress hormones may spike, and as time passes, that stress can become chronic.
Well, it's not even shocking. I mean, as men, our lives are stressful to begin with. We have to try to prove ourselves to society, and things change, and when bad times come about, we're the ones that suffer a lot. So stress isn't just from loneliness; it's just from how society perceives us and what society expects from us.
Social interactions and meaningful activities are essential for emotional stability. This may be because they provide us with what researchers call social reality testing, a sort of sounding board where we can gauge how rational our perceptions are. So, when someone's deprived of those kinds of communication and tasks, their sense of identity and reality becomes threatened. Their
Well, it's don't just assume that men are like just have to change their way of thinking. I mean, it's well known that it's it's pretty much obvious of how society treats us. And could you really blame men for becoming that way?
thoughts spiral and their impulses take the reins, setting the stage for depression, obsessions, suicidal ideation, and, for some, delusions and hallucinations.
Well, are we supposed to act surprised that all this is happening?
Over time, this prolonged agitation can cause the brain's limbic system, which regulates fear and stress, to become especially responsive and hyperactive. Meanwhile, the prefrontal cortex, the brain's hub for reasoning and moral judgment, may shrink, impairing one's focus, memory, and cognition. Overall, the balance shifts from rational thinking towards emotionality.
Well, here's something I would like to bring up. I mean, I've heard a lot about like how women have it better regarding language learning, and this video mentions about like how loneliness could affect your ability to remember things. And like with language learning, you have to like remember a lot. And with women, they have like it better socially, and they have like more support regarding language learning. And obviously, I feel that's why they learn better because with all that support and with all these like opportunities to connect with people to help them learn languages, they could remember things better, and thus it'll be helpful in learning language no matter how old they are.
And as someone remains in this state, the imbalance becomes ingrained, making them more prone to bouts of anxiety, rage, and irrational actions.
Well, I don't. Saying irrational is a bit gaslighting, in my opinion.
Isolation will also affect other parts of the person's health. They may lose sense of time and have difficulties sleeping.
Well, I have a lot of difficulty sleeping, but it's not just because I'm lonely. It's just because, like, as a guy, I feel really stressed about our future, and it's basically things we have no control over for the most part. But I mean, I feel we could have control if we wake up and realize what dire straits a lot of us men are in, and how things are set up, and how we look back in history and what happened to men whenever things got bad in the world. So let's say like a war happens or an economic crisis. I mean, historically, it's always been worse for men when these things happened. And I mean, I saw really recently about like how gods and women are divorcing men, and it's just because those men are not working enough, or they just could not find their job to provide for the family. I mean, our anxiety is rational, and we can't just you can't just have a simple mind change or just do it. It's not us that's the problem. It's the way things are set up that's the problem.
They're more likely to experience heart palpitations, headaches, dizziness, and hypersensitivity.
Well, hypersensitivity, that's again, you're just being a bit on the gaslighting side. I mean, what do you expect us to be? Emotionless robots? In the world of the Joker, we can't always expect to take you like good little boys.
And they may also lose weight because of stress-induced digestive issues and poor appetite.
Well, I thought obesity is a problem. Yet you're saying that a loss of weight is a problem now?
One can attempt to cope by establishing the healthiest routine possible under the extreme circumstances, including robust exercise, reading, and writing.
Again, that doesn't really do much. That can only do so much. If you're not everyone has the ability to just break out routines. In writing, like writing what? Writing things that no one's gonna look at? What are we gonna write? Okay, reading, but read what? Oh, there's not many good books nowadays because feminists have taken over the book industry. I mean, we could always read the classics, but sometimes even the classics have like some anti-male content in it. I mean, just look at like Pinocchio. I mean, that book is basically about like you're not a real boy if you don't prove yourselves. You're not a real boy if you don't go to school. I mean, it's everywhere. I mean, don't expect us to read easily if we can't find anything that's out there that's relatable.
But that can only do so much.
Huh. Funny enough, they just said that, even though I said that can only do so much.
The United Nations, many human rights organizations, and experts classify this kind of forced, prolonged isolation as torture.
The UN supposedly says that it's bad, but yet their feminists run and they stand up for women more than men.
And yet, it's something imprisoned people in many countries endure. Also called solitary confinement or restrictive housing, the practice is most common in the United States. In 2019, more than 120,000 U.S. prisoners lived in solitary confinement, spending 22 to 24 hours a day in mostly windowless cells spanning.
Well, we're kind of living in prison for the most part. With the way things are in the world, for men, prison's not much different than daily life. Of course, prison is worse, but in other cases, daily life is could be like compared to prison. If you're low status, then it's really hard to get out of that zone. If you're not in one of the big cities, then it's hard to move places if you don't have a car because infrastructure is terrible and thus you're confined to your own house. Plus, in addition, there's not many dirt spaces, and thus there's no place for you to go to meet people. And even if there is dirt spaces, if you're a man, you're most likely not going to meet people because you're not high status enough or you're not so-called keeping up in life. Here's one proof I have. Let's say you go to a social meeting. Here's one of the first questions you're going to ask. They're going to ask you. They're going to ask you, where do you work? Oh, where do you go to school? Oh, do you have a girlfriend? See, these are questions that people use to gauge your status and position in life. That's what it is for us men. And school, for the most part, is basically like prison. You can't choose your teachers as men. We as men can't choose our teachers. In college we could choose our teacher, but not in elementary school, and for the most part not really in high school as well. We're stuck on this hamster wheel trying to grind for grades.
Roughly 6 by 9 feet. Quaker groups introduced solitary confinement to U.S. prisons in the late 1700s as an alternative to corporal punishment, believing it could bring about reflection and penitence, hence penitentiary. But the practice quickly faced criticism from public figures all the way to the Supreme Court. Charles Dickens, for one, condemned solitary confinement as worse than any torture of the body. Its use dwindled, but then, in the 1980s, alongside more punitive, tough-on-crime laws, U.S. prison populations skyrocketed. As prisons grew crowded, incidences of protests, rebellions, and violence grew, and prison authorities increasingly used solitary confinement to maintain control. Many people.
Well, there's also private prisons, and they just put people in the prison just to make profit.
Have been placed in solitary confinement for minor, non-violent infractions, like talking back to prison guards. And solitary confinement is harmful to everyone, but many who've experienced it have pre-existing mental health disorders, which it only exacerbates. Solitary confinement also seems to have lasting effects that make readjusting to life outside of a cell difficult. People who have gone through solitary confinement are 3 times more likely to show signs of post-traumatic stress disorder, and they commonly report experiencing shifts in their personalities, increased anxiety and paranoia in otherwise ordinary situations, and difficulty concentrating and connecting with others.
Well, if you're a guy and you turn the magic age of 18 to 21, it's hard to connect with others, period, with the way things are set up. Solitary confinement, if you ask me, it's just the average life of. To me, solitary confinement is just the life of your average man. Because it really gets isolating as soon as you turn 18 to 21. Things change fast, and space is not. And it's not our fault that we're alone.
Some states have restricted the use of solitary confinement in cases involving serious mental illness, children, or pregnancy, and some have adopted 15 or 20-day limits for everyone. But laws that regulate solitary confinement aren't always enforced, and prison authorities have created loopholes. Yet solitary confinement does immense damage that is contrary to rehabilitation, while failing to reduce prison violence. Meanwhile, other countries have centered more humane approaches. Norway, for example, imprisons far fewer people per capita than the US, while spending 5 times more per prisoner.
Oh, they mentioned about how solitary confinement does not prevent violence. Well, what actually exacerbates violence, if you ask me. I mean, just look at the even in the even outside prison, like again, us men we're just lonely a lot, and just look at the school shooters, for example. I mean, you see the pattern of like a lot of these school shooters, and they're basically men who are just don't really fit in, and they weren't treated well. So you could call that solitary confinement. I mean, they were isolated against their own will, and the and they can only take so much. Again, I'm not defending their behavior. I'm just trying to get you to understand why this thing happens.
On accommodations, classes, and work release programs. Norway also sees far fewer people return to prison after release, with one of the world's lowest rates of recidivism, indicating we tend to get better together. Every year, hundreds of thousands of people in the US who can't afford bail are forced to stay in jail until their case is resolved. Take a
That just shows that high stakes people have more advantage in society. And also, this video just says, "Oh, we need to get more connected." Well, one of the ways, and interesting enough, this is TED. One of the ways you could get more connected is to not look down on your lower states viewers, because I've seen you guys look down on lower states viewers. You just don't and you guys criticize people who are low status. I mean, you should look at yourselves in the mirror as well. And
closer look at what has broken the cash bail system with this video.
okay, just a typical. To me, this video is just virtue signaling. I mean, this video just says that, oh yeah, this is bad, but I mean, is solitary confinement just in prisons, or could we also know something in real life? I mean, I know something in real life, and this is to me, it's just the average life of men. Because we have to prove ourselves in order to be accepted by society. We have to prove ourselves in order to get connections. Whereas the other gender, they don't have to do as much. Anyways.